name is Maksim Shtrykov. I play the clarinet.
And my name is Misuzu Tanaka, and I play the piano.
And together we are known as Shtrykov Tanaka Duo. Today we are here to talk about music and our instrument.
My journey in music began already from the stage where my father came up with my name. My name, Misuzu, is somewhat unusual in Japan, and probably not that many of you know that name. In our culture, in Japanese culture as well, most of the times our names are given with Chinese characters. So the Chinese characters for my name is Beautiful Bell. My father and my mother were both very much appreciative of music, and we always had music playing in the house, or even when I was still not born yet, my mother would take me to symphony concerts. And so having this name, being given this name, Beautiful Bell, was as if my fate was decided to have music in my life, whether it be as a profession or not. And so I am very grateful for that. My beginning in music was when my parents' friends heard me singing, and they heard that I was singing a song exactly in tune, in pitch, and they thought that it might be a good idea for me to try some piano lessons. right now I perform on my own as a soloist and also with my husband as a what we call chamber music, yeah, as an ensemble. And my earliest memories of playing ensemble was with my mother. We would play piano duets together. And after that, I also started playing the violin. So that really further nurtured my love for chamber music. I think piano is a very solitary activity. Playing the piano is a very solitary activity, and it's easy for us to feel a little bit lonely. But when we are able to play with other people, it brings a new dimension of joy as well. So that is an aspect in my life that I cannot imagine being without. So even though the piano is actually an instrument that's very, solitary, a very solitary experience, I would say that the most amazing thing that we can do is to recreate the orchestra. So no matter how big the piano is, it's gone from being only a couple of octaves to 88 keys on the piano in modern times. We always have the range of different instruments in the orchestra. The lower notes could be a double bass, the higher notes could be violins, flutes, piccolos. So it's no wonder that composers since the time of Johann Sebastian Bach, from 1600s all the way through to present day, they have always created or transcribed music that is originally for a big ensemble to just a solo keyboard instrument. And perhaps if you have heard the concert video, you heard that in the third piece that I performed, which was based on the Sinfonia of a cantata by Johann Sebastian Bach, which was transcribed by Wilhelm Kempf for the piano. The piano part is playing the trumpets part, the violin part, cello parts, all sorts of parts, and organ part as well. Yeah, so I think the piano is a solitary instrument, but is incredibly symphonic as well. So at your fingertips, you have the command of being any orchestra instrument you want. So that is something that I really love about the piano. And because of that, you could be, I think for a pianist, it's very easy to be a specialist in something. What do I mean by that? On the piano, like I said, you can play works from so many centuries. But of course, not everyone is comfortable with Bach. Not everyone is comfortable with playing music of Tchaikovsky. two great composers from two very different centuries. But because there is an abundance of what we call keyboard music or also piano music, we can decide to specialize in certain areas. So if you go and search for pianists online, you will see that some of them repeatedly play music from the same composers. And I think that's also a great benefit, and probably many other non-pianists envy us for being able to do that. The piano had three predecessors, mainly two, but I guess we could say three. One is called the harpsichord, the other is called the clavichord, and then the final one is called a dulcimer. So the dulcimer was played like this. It's like you have some strings right here, and then you have things that look like mallets. Yeah, like you would play a marimba, for example, and then you would hit the strings like this. Yeah, and the harpsichord and the clavichord It would look more like a piano. There's a keyboard and there are some strings. But what is the big difference between the harpsichord and the piano? Well, the harpsichord, it was not possible to create loud sounds and quiet sounds. Also, because the string was being plucked, kind of like you would pluck a guitar, yeah, except you play a key and then a string will be plucked, yeah. Because of that, the sound was not sustained for very long. Probably if you play on a piano and you just keep holding the keys, the sound would not die out for a good, probably about 10 seconds, yeah. But for harpsichord, the sound would die out pretty quickly, yeah. So back before the 1700s, you know, for a couple hundred years, harpsichords and clavichords were very much in use. But finally, in the 1700s, an Italian man named Bartolomeo Cristofori, he invented the clavicembalo col piano e forte. That means clavichord, yeah, or piano that can create soft sounds and loud sounds. So finally, there came an instrument that could really create different dynamics. And that was the birth of the piano. And from there on, all the way, I would say, especially up until the early 1900s, the piano went through many transformations. Yeah, as the orchestras and the ensembles got bigger as well, and some composers were experimenting with a lot of harps or a lot of brass instruments in their orchestra, the piano also became louder and louder. Some famous composers such as Franz Liszt famously endorsed many pianos because he was just a superstar of the time. But he also broke a lot of pianos because he wanted louder, more powerful sounds. So what did they do? The strings got much stronger, thicker, and also the strings used to be straight strung. Yeah, so all the strings were parallel like this. But eventually, as they wanted stronger, bigger pianos, they started to cross the strings like this. Yeah. And every manufacturer was trying to be more innovative than the other. So if you, for example, compare a piano from the same maker from like 1868 to like 1871, yeah, that's only 3 years of difference. But already the sound is very different or has a different character. So I think if I talk a little bit about my experience of trying these pianos, it's a very exciting feeling to try different pieces on different pianos from different centuries. I've been to a piano petting zoo sort of place that is in Massachusetts near the border of New Hampshire. And there are about 20, 30 different pianos, all the way beginning from 1700s, all the way to 1922. Between those times lived famous composers, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, Schumann, Tchaikovsky, and who did I miss? Chopin and Rachmaninoff. All these people played on completely different pianos, and to play on those pianos from different time periods is like an incredible time machine, because you know, you would always think that, oh, well, a piano from 2020 must surely be better than a piano from 1750. But sometimes bigger and powerful is not always better. Yeah, because the composer wrote wrote a certain piece with a certain kind of sound in mind. And a lot of times that kind of sound is possible to replicate or to reproduce on a piano from that time. So it's very interesting and puts things in perspective. So if you ever have a chance to look up on YouTube something like forte piano Beethoven piano sonata, yeah, or try some other things like period instrument piano music, then you might be able to listen to the sound of these special pianos.
I began playing clarinet when I was 8. And my first instrument actually was a piano. Later on, I started playing a recorder, an instrument that probably is quite familiar to all of you. And I played recorder for about 2 years and then moved on to the clarinet. Now, why did I choose clarinet? Well, actually, my father, who loves jazz and had a very big collection of LPs, he would frequently play those LPs for me while I was playing with my toys around the house. And so in some way I grew up listening to jazz and jazz players. So mainly I would hear trumpet, I would hear clarinet, Benny Goodman, and I would hear saxophone and jazz piano. Now, when my father asked me what instrument would I like to learn besides a small recorder, because it was the time to switch, I actually chose saxophone. So what happened next is we went to a music school, and turns out there is no saxophone teacher. So the director of the school suggested that I should try the clarinet. And the reasoning behind it was that the clarinet and saxophone are related and it's quite easy to switch, which is actually true. And the way saxophone and clarinet are related is the shape of the mouthpiece and that fact that you actually have the same single reed on both instruments. So I actually decided to stay with the clarinet for several reasons. As I was developing as a student, I began playing better and better, and I fell in love with the sound of the clarinet. So for a while I didn't look back, and I wasn't thinking about switching to the saxophone. What also influenced my choice of my instrument was the fact that the saxophone was strongly associated with jazz music. However, I was studying classical music in the school. It was a classical music school and we didn't have a jazz department. So later on, my teacher told me that if I want to study saxophone, I should probably go to Moscow, because they had and they still have a great classical saxophone department there. But it never materialized, and I stayed with the clarinet all the way until later in my life, when I actually had a chance to try saxophone, and I enjoyed it immensely and began studying it together with the clarinet. So at this point, I do play both instruments. So let's talk about the clarinet. The clarinet was born around 1700, beginning of the 18th century, and it's a relatively young instrument if you compare it to the oboe, flute, or a bassoon, among woodwind instruments. The father of the clarinet is an instrument called chalumeau. It's a type of a flute. It had 7 to 8 holes and could only play an octave and a half. It had a mouthpiece and a reed. So that's what would connect it this instrument to a clarinet. Now, the difference was that you would play chalumeau with the reed facing upwards, so you would control it with your top lip. In modern clarinets, we control the reed with our bottom lip, so we hold the mouthpiece like so. On a chalumeau, you would hold the mouthpiece like so. And actually, on the early clarinets in the Baroque time, they would still do this, and they would control the sound with the top lip. It is generally accepted that the man who invented clarinet was the German craftsman by the name Johann Denner. Together with his son, they made several improvements on the chalumeau by adding 2 keys and expanding the range of the chalumeau, so chalumeau could play in the low register and in the middle register, so you would have 2 octaves. However, the chalumeau would sound very well in a low register, and a clarinet of that time didn't sound very well in the low register at all. However, the clarinet would shine in the middle register, in the middle octave, and would have a very loud and shrill sound. And so the clarinet got its name from the type of a trumpet called clarinet. And the reason for it is, of course, the fact that the sound would resemble the sound of a trumpet. Nowadays we don't think about it, because a clarinet has a very mellow sound. Each register on a clarinet has a special name. The low register gets its name from chalumeau. So we have a low register called chalumeau. The middle register gets its name from that old trumpet, and we call the middle register clarion. Some people call it clarinet. And the top register we call altissimo. Now, let's talk about the parts of the clarinet and the material of the clarinet. Now, let's start with parts of the instrument. We have a bell, the lower joint, we have the upper joint, the barrel, we have a mouthpiece, a reed, and a ligature. Altogether, 7 parts. Now, I should probably also mention is that the modern clarinet has about 17 keys. Some models have 18 and 19, but you should keep in mind that the early clarinets would have 5 keys. At the time of Mozart and Beethoven, that was a standard. You would have 5 keys. So now we should talk about the material that the clarinet is made of. It's made of wood, traditionally. There are, of course, models for students that are made of plastic. It's easier material to handle, and it doesn't crack. However, the professional instruments are made of wood, and the instrument I'm holding in my hands are made of boxwood. It's exactly the same type of material that traditionally clarinets would be made 300 years ago. Now you probably are more familiar with a clarinet that looks like so. The black one with silver keys. And this clarinet is made of grenadilla, or African blackwood. And traditionally, nowadays, clarinets are made of grenadilla. I should probably also mention the family of the clarinet. The clarinet comes in different shapes and sizes, from the smallest one called a piccolo clarinet to a very large members of the family called a octa contrabass clarinet, which is very rare. Probably the more familiar low instruments would be the bass clarinet and a contrabass clarinet. And if you ever, some of you will be playing in a wind band, you will encounter the bass clarinet as the lowest instrument in the family. Most common one is the B flat clarinet, and that's the one you would start on and the one you would see in a wind band. In a symphony orchestra, you would see clarinetists with 2 clarinets, one B flat and one clarinet in A. And I will talk about it in details, because this is one of the most common questions I get from the kids and from the audience. Even adult audience members would ask me, why do I have 2 clarinets on stage? Because I frequently do. And the answer is that the 2 types of clarinets that I usually play is the clarinet in B flat and clarinet in A. The difference is about maybe an inch between them. The clarinet in A is slightly longer, but why do I need 2 clarinets? And why one called clarinet in B flat and another one is clarinet in A? Well, this is because the clarinet is a transposing instrument. And you might ask, what is a transposing instrument? Well, the piano, for example, is not a transposing instrument. And the reason for it is that when the pianist plays a note, it sounds exactly as it's written for an audience. We call those instruments instruments that play in a concert pitch. Now, to make it slightly more simple, imagine a pianist playing middle C, and it's written middle C in the sheet music. So the audience will actually hear middle C. However, the clarinet, when I play my middle C, the audience will hear a B flat. Hence the name, the clarinet in B flat. And as you probably already figured out, if I play middle C on the A clarinet, you would hear note A. So if I would play a C major scale on a B flat clarinet, it would sound like this. Now, if I play the same scale on an A clarinet, it would sound like this. So, why do we need this? Why do we have transposing instruments? Well, it actually to make it easier for the clarinetist to play in different keys. The A clarinet traditionally is being used for playing in the keys with sharps. When you have many sharps, you play on the A clarinet and it's much easier. Let's say if music is in A major with 3 sharps, you play it on the A clarinet and clarinetist sees this as a music in C major with no sharps. Now, the B flat clarinet is traditionally used to play music that is written with flats. So I would, let's say, play a music that is written in E flat major with 3 flats. However, on a B flat clarinet, on my music, I would see F major with only 1 flat. So things are easier, and orchestra clarinetists often have 2 instruments on stage as the concert goes on. They would continuously switch depending on what they play.
Growing up in England, we were very much encouraged to play 2 instruments. So, of course, I started out with the piano when I was 4.5, and then came the violin when I was probably about 7 years old.
What other instruments do I play? Besides the piano and the recorder, I also play saxophone and the flute. So the piano I study for approximately 15 years, and the clarinet, well, it will be 30 years soon. Saxophone was the 3rd woodwind instrument that I began learning, and the flute is the most recent one. So I play 4 woodwind instruments in total, and I play 1 keyboard instrument. Well, I know my way around organ, but I cannot call myself an organist.
I first started playing the piano when I was 4.5 years old, and it has been more than 30 years of playing the piano. I would say that every single extracurricular activity that I did, I always approached it in a very serious manner. If anything was done with a not very serious approach, it was quickly dropped. So piano, I always, loved playing piano and played it pretty seriously, but I think it took a very serious turn in my teens. So the very serious part of my piano playing, it's probably about 20 some years. I would say that in order to be able to play fast, there are a couple things. First of all, you must put in the time to practice on your instrument every single day. Yeah, and it's not just, by the time you feel warmed up, you close the piano lid. No, by the time you feel warmed up, then you can practice, or you should practice, at least 1 hour if you're only maybe 8 or 9 years old. By the time you're a teenager, you will probably be practicing a good 3 to 4 hours a day. Yeah, so that's the first thing. And the second thing to be able to play fast is to be able to move your body very efficiently. So if we think about football players or Olympic athletes, they have a lot of muscle in big muscle groups, like maybe your arms right here, yeah, or maybe your thighs, yeah, depending on what your area of expertise is. For pianists, all the muscles we have are right here, yeah. And if you look at my hands as well, every part is quite defined from all the playing that I do. Yeah, or if I give my husband a massage, it's actually pretty powerful because I have all these muscles, compact muscles here. So I'm an athlete of the small muscles from all the hours I practice. But at the same time, I don't exert a lot of strength in my playing. If you think about ringing a bell, like a handbell, yeah, this kind of thing, you don't exert a lot of force like this, but you really use the relaxed arm weight, yeah? So when we play as well, a lot of the big sounds we get are from relaxing the arm. And all the agile activity here is almost as if we are a marionette, yeah? Like we have some strings attached to our fingers and someone is just lifting them. So there is actually absolutely no tension anywhere. And we learn to use our body, or fingers, I guess, very efficiently. Yeah, that's the most important thing. So the hours and the efficiency of how to move your hands and your body.
How do I play so fast? I frequently get this question from the young audience. And well, the answer is actually quite simple. If you want to play very fast, you have to learn how to practice slow. From the very slow to a moderate tempo, all the way until you have mastered the music and you can play it fast. So this is the kind of a very simple answer. Also, you have to have a lot of patience because it takes a lot of time to learn music that you need to play fast on stage. What I should probably mention is that you really would benefit from having a very good teacher who are very skilled on the clarinet and knows how to play fast, because that would save you a lot of time. We hope you enjoyed our little informal session together. We surely did enjoy working on it, and we also hope you're going to be coming back to rewatch it.
If you have any further questions beyond what we answered in the video, please feel free to write to Carrizozo Music and we'd be sure to answer them.
We are looking forward to have our next informant session in person. For now, we wish you a great time with your instrument and hopefully see you soon.
Bye for now.